What can a person do?
Well, first, the dynamic of the individual must be commitment. You've got to commit yourself to something. The problem is that you are also distracted in so many ways that your energies are diffused, that you feel that if you were going to make a decision and take one path, then that might not be the perfect path. It might be the wrong path. It might not be strong enough, or you get involved in something that only partially answers the dynamic of your longing, your need, your willingness to be of service to the rest of humanity. And so primarily the dynamic ultimately becomes one of commitment, being willing to be wrong in the pursuit of what's right, to be willing to be able to make a mistake. And we have said this before, but what's the most powerful word in your universe? Oops. Well, but it is, because it shows a whole dynamic of forgiveness of self. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to know what you wish on the beginning, what the end result of the dynamic is going to be on the end of your journey. You only know, like, for example, if you take a dynamic and you say, I wish to work for peace. All right, well, that begins a journey, doesn't it? That has you beginning to look at different peace groups. What does peace mean? What is the definition of peace? What does peace mean to you as an individual? What are the earmarks of peace? What would you have to have in your lives? What would you have to have in your life to feel peaceful? Now, we would suggest to you that begins with safety and security. If you do not feel safe and you do not feel secure within the dynamics of your environment, you are not going to have personal peace. But if you can create, and in this world that you live in right now, with the whole cacophony of noise that is going on right now, how many of you actually feel safe and secure, unless you're totally oblivious to the dynamics of what is going on? So you basically need the dynamic of commitment as an individual, and that dynamic of movement is going to lead to a movement where a critical mass is going to be reached. And that dynamic is going to wind up moving forward, and you will find yourself being, what shall we say, swept by a wave that you can all begin to agree upon. We touch upon it almost every week. Peace begins with enough for all: food, water, shelter, healthcare, and education. Most of you cannot even imagine that. But if you could just take the time and imagine, what would your life be like if you had all of your basic needs met? What could you accomplish? What would you explore? That is the true dynamic of humanity, the true exploration of humanity. We talk about becoming peacemakers and problem solvers. But what happens when the peace is done? What happens when the problems are solved? You think you're all going to sit around and watch TV? No, that's not what you're going to do. Humanity is much more creative than that. If you allow these dynamics to have space, and that's what it ultimately is. If we were to say to you, you have to do this, this, and this in order to achieve that, then we're just telling you what to do. But if we tell you that if you begin an incremental journey, a step-by-step journey, and understand in the dynamic of this duality, where one moment seems to follow another, everything is an incremental journey. Everything is step by step. You guys all think that you have to go from here to the end in one fell swoop. And it just doesn't work like that, because then you would not have all of the pieces necessary to create that dynamic of safety for yourself. As you begin to understand more about reality creation, and you begin to understand more how really it's only you that are in charge of that dynamic. As humanity begins to wake up in that way, it's going to be, yes, it's going to be individual action, but it's going to be the individual action of many, many, many people. So the biggest thing that you can do is talk to others and communicate. The simpler dynamics, the dynamics that can be solved. Everybody needs food, water, shelter at the very least. And healthcare and education leads to a dynamic of an advanced civilization. You provide these 5 things for everyone, and we talked last time about how there is more than enough, that things are just polarized to a point where, things are just so strained. We were talking this morning to Adrian. Things are wound so tautly right now. People are wound so taut.
So, should I make a sandwich and give it to someone?
No. Well, that wouldn't hurt if that is what satisfies you. That would not hurt if that, and that certainly would add to the dynamic if that satisfies you. But if you wish to make a bigger difference, then it's time to start organizing. Then it's time to begin to come together. Then it's time to begin to try to get people in agreement with a common goal
Of
peace. Peace.